Welcome in to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. And Gilbert, I don't know if you realize this, but this is our third straight year doing a wild card game now. We did the Lions and Rams. We did the who do we have last year? The Eagles,
Vikings.
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 Sorry, Vikings. Sorry, jumping ahead. We did Vikings, Rams from Arizona, and then this year we have the Panthers and Rams and Carolina Panthers. Sorry about that. But I just wanted to, before we get to everything, Gilbert, and I want to give a shout out to Daniel Calderon, Brian Smith, and Mike Armenta. They're already in the comments. They're having a conversation about Jetterverse. So you
Yeah.
got to start it there, Gilbert, with your headline there. But talking, I want not only do I want to get into everything that has to do with this matchup. I have so much information for you, Gilbert, for both of these teams here. But before we get started, I usually like having a conversation or ask you a question here. And I think for both of these teams, my question for you is, what's been like the trend this year that kind of has stuck out to you, like something that kind of just where you were like, man, like I did, this has been the biggest thing from this season that I'm gonna take in terms of the trend. And the reason I'm asking you this is I'm gonna I'm gonna tie it back into both of these teams, Gilbert.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. And I wish I had more answers, but maybe I will as I get going. But I'll give you the one that I've been stuck on. And you already know this one, Vic. And I feel like for the first time in a decade that the defenses are ahead of the offense because, as we know, all the rules in the past decade or maybe 20 years or since Aaron Rodgers was in his prime, Peyton Manning was in his prime, Tom Brady in his prime, all the rules were pretty much shifted towards gearing to helping the quarterback, helping the offense to score a lot of points. And I think we saw the effect of that. There hasn't been like a legit dominant defense in the last decade since I think the no fly zone in 2015, the Broncos, and obviously before that it was the Legion of Boom. And I wrote a story not too long ago, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, where I got a chance to relay some questions to some members of Legion of Boom, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, Cam Chancellor, and I pretty much asked. I said, do you think we're going to see a dominant defense? At some point, coming soon, and all three said, yeah, it's been about a decade, and I wasn't wrong in saying dominant defense because I get it. There's been some good ones like the Kansas City Chiefs, but you think about Patrick Mahomes more like you have a good defense, but you also have a star quarterback, and the rules are
Yep.
catered to you when you have a star quarterback. You know, I really like the Eagles defense of last year, which dominated Patrick Mahomes, but I think Saquon Barkley more. I think Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. Uh, you keep going down the list. Even the other Eagles team that won the Super Bowl was pretty good. But you think Nick Foles, you think about the offense and how exciting they were, how creative. So you have to go 10 years to really think about a defense. So I'm all over the place, but pretty much, you know, when I was asking these questions, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, Cam Chancellor, and I just said, all right, now tell me what's the best defense all time. And I know they're going to be biased here. And you got the 2000 Ravens, the 85 Bears, 2002 Buccaneers. You can keep going on and on. But they said we're the best because we did it in an era when the rules were catered for the quarterback. Like, yeah, back in the day, it was slow football, hard nosed football. Like it was all about defenses, and then they took that away from them, and they were able to do that against the top quarterbacks I just mentioned, even throwing like a Drew Brees. So, uh, and I'm not saying this is the reason why Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow are not in the playoffs, but it kind of feels like it's not a coincidence. Like the defense has stepped up. I know people don't want to hear about the Seahawks anymore, but Seahawks, Broncos, Eagles are a good defense. Houston is the best defense in football. I think the Rams are a good defense. I just think as you guys know, I worry about their secondary. But even they're like the Rams are a very dangerous team because they have both. They have a good defense and a good offense, and I think that's what makes them so dangerous. But anyways, I feel like this is the one time in the last 10 years where you could be a special defense and not have a great offense and go all the way. I think before that, you really needed to have a good or a very solid offense. Like Nick Foles, wasn't a star quarterback, but he had a good offense. Joe Flacco of the 2012 or whatever that year was. Like sometimes you just gotta have enough offense, and you better, have a complete team to help them out. But to me, I really feel like this is the first time in a long time where the defenses are actually one step ahead. But again, I think to the Rams' advantage, they're complete, and maybe complete football is still the best way to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and and I said I would tie this in, and I didn't, I didn't know where you were gonna go with it, but I'm glad you decided to go with the defenses here. Um, and before I get to, I kind of give you, I tie it up here, with a nice bow here. I just want to tell everybody we have a great show for you guys. We're gonna break down this matchup. We'll between the Rams and the Panthers. We'll get to latest news and notes, plus storylines for both teams going into this matchup. And lastly, we'll do our game predictions. And like I said, I have a lot of information for you. And one of the trends that I saw and kind of doing research for this matchup is the fact, Gilbert, that for the first time since 2017, where we had the explosion of the offenses, as you talked about, um, is we had the most 1,000 rushers that we've had since then, Gilbert. And
Oh,
and now we're starting to see the running back be a
yeah,
thing.
that's a good
And
one.
I think that's going to be one of the common things with both of these teams because guess what? It's supposed to rain on Saturday, and you have both of these teams have two-headed monsters in terms of being able to run the ball, right? You have Kyron Williams and Blake Corum on one side, and then you have Hubbard, and you have Rico Dowdle on the other side,
Yeah,
and they both of those tandems, I think had the Panthers had 140 yards in that first meeting in week 13. The Rams had around 150 combined. So one of the things we're starting to see with these with this league now is that the running back is getting being valued once again. And then the other thing, Gilbert, is efficiency. Being able to be efficient with your offense, right? The Rams are one of the most efficient offenses in the league. The Panthers, on the other hand, are one of the worst efficient offenses in the league. And so that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on in this matchup as well. I just thought like trends, like these are two teams that are similar in ways, but are also so far in terms of opposite that it's going to make for a good matchup, I think. And I think this is the matchup that I think a lot of people are going to overlook just because of the 10-point spread. But I'm going to tell you why this might be a better matchup or one of the better matchups this weekend, Gilbert. And so with that, I just wanted to get into the whole conversation of this matchup because I think it
yeah.
is a good matchup in terms of where they're at currently.
Yeah, I think last year we saw the beginning of the return of the running back. Obviously, with the Saquon Barkley 2,000 rushing yards, and it didn't work out for the Rams last year having to face Saquon. And I do worry about the Rams' run defense because they got gashed by Bijan Robinson. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, and because I was checking, I was checking the stats. It was the end of the season, so I wanted to make sure I was caught up on who did what. And I was surprised that James Cook won the rushing title. I thought it would be like, Bijan or CMC or obviously Jonathan Taylor had a strong start, but he faded. But I realized I'm like, man, Bijan, McCaffrey, and Gibbs, they racked up a lot of receiving yards. And it's like
Hmm.
it's been one of those years where it felt like remember back in the maybe 2000s where like it was like Marshall Falk,
Yep.
LT, Praise Holmes, like these guys did everything. Like they were
The
just
complete
not
back is back.
complete back, not just yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. Complete back is back. It's not just the running back or the workhorse. It's like the do it all machine that give me the 80 catches. Like I saw like Jameer Gibbs have 75 catches. It was like whoa. Obviously Bijan it was flirting with I think with the scrimmage yard record. CMC was flirting with 1,000 receiving yards, 1,000 rushing yards. I'm like, it's been a long time since teams have been willing to give that much of a workload to a running back. And maybe that was the start of the Eagles last year with Saquon getting 2K. Obviously, you're kind of seeing the effects of that workload because he wasn't as good this year. You don't know how he's going to play out in the postseason. Maybe they're saving his best for this time of year. But yeah, there's something about having to run the football. And one trend that was on my radar regarding this game, Victor, and it kind of faded. I kept saying, like, man, the way that Dave Canales is able to just bring out a productive rushing attack, like nobody knew about
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard last year, and he got him going, and they paid that guy a contract extension, and then he got hurt, and then plugging Rico Dow, and he became better than Chuba Hubbard, and now they have two guys, and I think to them, they kind of had a hard time figuring out who to ride here because they paid Chuba Hubbard and kind of made it a little confusing. You overthink it, but the point is Canales has a great rushing scheme, and it kind of faded towards the end. They couldn't run the
Yep.
football. I was surprised against Tampa Bay, and that's kind of the reason that they were able to upset, teams like the Rams and the Packers and so many other teams that you know they weren't supposed to be. I think they had the most upsets this season in terms
Yep.
of a betting standpoint. But if they're able to run the football, which like they did in Week 13, I think it was against the Rams, and it wasn't like these massive numbers. You brought them up, but
Nope.
I think that was a Hubbard day where he had a maybe 80 yards, and it wasn't a Rico Dow day. And Rico Dow is really faded here, so they got to figure out who's going to be the hot hand on Saturday. But he knows how to run the football. The first thing he did when he got to Carolina, yeah, he couldn't fix Bryce Young. He had to bench him. He wasn't ready. But while Bryce Young was on the bench, he fixed that Russian attack by fixing the run blocking. The O line, he was just plugging in guys who knew how to run block. And then, all right, who's gonna get the rock here? We got the lanes open, and then it turned out to be Chuba Hubbard. And he benefited from that. Like they made fun of this team for signing Robert Hunt to $100 million contract last year, and he's been a bodyguard. So he knows how to have a run blocking scheme. It's not the same as a Kyle Shanahan scheme, and it hasn't become the hot name. But I think eventually people are going to catch up to Canales, and obviously the Rams have a good one, good one themselves. But remember in that game, you know what happened? They stopped running the football. So
Yep.
if Sean McVay could run the football and not forget about it, they'll be okay too.
Yeah, and this is why we do a good show here, Gilbert, because a lot of the information that you just gave out, I have a little bit to add to that, but I want to get to that uh in a little bit of time. I want to get to news and notes that,
Yep.
and that's where I'm going to give you some information there. There's a couple of things you talked about there that we'll bring up and which will be a big emphasis during Rams news and notes plus the injury report. But Gilbert, we usually like to have an engagement here for our viewers and listeners. What is today's engagement question?
Yeah, let me know the keys to a Rams victory here against the Panthers. I know I've been crapping on Carolina, but they did beat the Rams in week 13. I think it
Mhm.
is 13. And so the Rams got to show them respect, and they've had many upsets this year. So let me know what's the keys. Like, is it shutting down that running game with Chuba Hubbard or is it Chuba? I forget, or Chuba, I forget. And then Enrico Dow, and then obviously is it for the Rams? Just keep running the rock, man. Like, don't go away from that. You dictate the terms here because if you're playing ball control, you don't want the Panthers to be the ones dictating the terms on that and the time of possession. You want to be the ones like. There's nothing more devastating for a team where you're on the field defensively for like 10 minutes and it's like, all right, just get a stop here for a field goal and we'll be okay. And then boom, here's a touchdown to whatever Devontae Adams if he gets to play. You let us know. You let us know a bit about the injury report.
Yep.
But there's nothing more devastating than a long drive that just ends with a freaking touchdown. I think the Rams could dominate a game like that by running the football and then boom, here's a touchdown. Try to keep up and hang with us with their offense. And I don't know. I don't think the Panthers can hang offensively. But as we found out in week 13, they were the ones controlling the time position. They were the ones running the football. They were the ones being efficient. And everything you laid out for the trends this year, Vic, that is the reason why they beat them the first time around.
Yeah, and we'll get into that as well, and also give us the score. What do you think the score is going to be? Not just the keys to the game, but yeah, give us the key and the score, or how do you see things going on Saturday? All right, Gilbert, let's get to Rams news and notes plus the injury report. We'll start off with McVay. He was asked about having to play on Saturday. He said he was he said he was happy about the Rams playing on Saturday rather than waiting for a Sunday or Monday night game. And I
Okay.
got to give you credit, Gilbert. You called it. You said, "Hey, it's going to be Rams and Carolina just because it's Carolina." So I mean, you were spot on there.
Yeah, you have to have at least one team from a South Division, say, "Welcome to the NFL postseason." Like they have to be the
Yeah.
ones doing the hosting. But as it turned out, the AFC South was much better than we thought, and I think that was kind of a cool thing from the NFL to say, you know what, we noticed, here's some respect for you, Jaguars and Texans. We're gonna spread out the schedule. As for the NFC South, you guys were pretty much terrible. So here you go, Carolina, go be the ones that bring in the new postseason. So unfortunately, it came at the Rams' expense, but I think a lot of people here on the comments and the viewers of House of Horns, I think they're okay with
Yeah.
not having a sexy time slot, prime time. Nobody cares, and honestly, that's a little dangerous because when nobody cares, that's when Carolina plays better. Like Carolina, when they play, on a time slot that's not 10 a.m. Pacific, they tend to crumble. But when it's like 10 a.m. Pacific, nobody was watching. Let's flex our muscles. So maybe you're onto something
No.
here, Vic. But overall, maybe for the Rams, like it's better to kind of be under the radar, dominate this team, and then maybe next week when you get a better time slot, you show why you're one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, you get the ball rolling there, and then depending on what happens on Saturday, you get to kick back and then kind of see where you might be going, or whether you're hosting or you might be going somewhere. So,
Yeah, it's a good feeling too, knowing just kind of kicking back and watching the rest of it play out.
yep. All right, continuing on here with Rams news. Matthew Stafford was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Gilbert, he continues his MVP campaign with what is he had 4 touchdowns against the Rams. I mean, against the Cardinals. So well deserved there.
Yeah.
I know I saw a lot of people in the comments when I like went on Twitter to check out to look at the announcement from the NFL. They're like, yeah, but it was against the Rams. Does that really? I mean, it was against the Cardinals. Does that really count?
Yeah, but what's interesting though, like I think it might help that he was able to rack up so many touchdowns, Stafford, because he was first in that category with 46, and then the second place guy was Jared Goff with 34. He had 12 more passing touchdowns
Oh
than
yeah,
anybody else in the league. Those are big numbers, and uh, I know that Drake may had a better like passer rating. He had a better completion percentage, and a few other categories. But to me, the big ones are always passing touchdown, passing yards, and Stafford led the league in both. And also think about it, like when you get 46 touchdowns, you probably have double digit interceptions. He had 8, and there were some games he had some horrible games, like the 3 against Atlanta. He had 2 against Carolina. So like those are
yep.
5 and 2 games right there. So honestly, if you take away those 2 bad games, like Stafford could have had like 3 or 4 interceptions with that ratio of touchdown to interception. That to me alone speaks volumes for winning MVP. I saw somebody's comment here. When we'll find out about
Yep.
the MVP, Brian. Usually that happens at NFL Honors, which is Super Bowl week, so you won't know for another month. Which I kind of hate how long it takes here. But yeah, and all the voting is pretty much done. Nobody votes during the playoffs. So what's the holdup? I don't get it, but they want to have a whole red carpet show for the awards. Super Bowl week. I honestly think it should be Stafford's award, but Drake may have played well. But yeah, I know the competition level wasn't that great.
Yeah, I just the biggest thing I've seen now is like, oh, look at common opponents, and the fact that the Patriots blew out the Panthers, and then the Rams lost to the
No,
Panthers. I'm like,
that's not how it works on the
I
NFL.
know. It's just
Every
it's
week is
just
different.
yeah, I know. It's just it's driving me insane this year with some of the stuff, some of the takes. Rams continuing on here. Rams activate Quinn Lake from IR and put linebacker Sean Dulek on IR. Gilbert, so they'll have Quinn Lake back in this matchup. I want to get you. I want to wait. Just give me a moment here. I want to get through this before
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you about both some of these the injury report. But before I get to it, the Rams 2026 opponents are official now. At home, it'll be the Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks, Bills, Cowboys, Packers, Chiefs, Chargers, and Giants. Now,
Wow.
remember, Gilbert, one of those games will be in Australia, but
Oh,
that is a really good home schedule for people who want to go see the opponents. I'll just say that.
yeah, and I know people hate people who do this, but if you're selling tickets on the secondary market, that's a good schedule for the Rams. But
Yeah.
it would suck though, like it's Rams, Bills in Australia, and then you don't get that home game. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know, like you said, Bills, Packers, Cowboys, these are all fan bases that love to
Oh
watch your
yeah.
team or travel. A lot of fan bases that live in LA. What was the other one? Well, Packers is another good
Yep.
one. Even Giants, they have a lot of New York transplants in LA. So that's actually a very appealing schedule in terms of if you're trying to
Yeah,
make money on
if you're the Rams, you're asking it be the Giants in Australia,
Yeah, yeah, that's probably the least,
or the
desirable one.
Cardinals would be.
Oh, yeah, 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 the division ones besides 49ers, or I guess Seahawks are good now, but the Cardinals would be the number 1, like, "Get the hell out of here."
Yeah, and then away it's the Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks, Broncos, Raiders, Eagles, Buccaneers, and Commanders. So pretty good road schedule, honestly. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
their home one might be more. It's going to be a tougher slate
Yeah, I
there,
was gonna
Gilbert.
say it's pretty tough for a 3rd place schedule, but, the road one kinda evens out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough schedule. Well, and we never know how these teams
Yeah,
are
yeah.
gonna look next year. So I'm that's the other thing. But right now it looks like a really tough schedule next year. One more thing here, just in terms of we started the show with Jared Verse and the guys got it going here in the comments with Jared Verse, but he he was second in the league this year in turnovers forced by pressure. Jared Verse with 4.
Okay.
Ahead of him were Josh Hines Allen, and actually no, he tied for first. Josh Hines Allen had 5, and Jared Burrs had 5 as well. So he led the league in turnovers forced by pressure there, Gilbert. So good stat there by Jared Verse. And then let's get to the participants today in terms of the injury report. Um, Devontae Adams has been a full participant all week, Gilbert. Kevin Dotson did not practice. Neither did Terrence Ferguson. McVay did tell the beat reporters that this was going to be a possibility, but he expects Ferguson to play on Saturday. I probably would say we don't see Kevin Dotson in this game, and um, you also get Quinn Lake. And then how important have those two guys? This was from Adam Grossbar, your former colleague. Without Devontae Adams, the red zone conversion rate has dropped 20 points. Without Quinn Lake, the Rams' run defense EPA has gone from third all the way to 20th. So getting those two guys is really a big deal here, Gilbert.
Yeah, the Quentin Lake thing, like, maybe it helped that he was out for a couple of weeks because his absence was very noticeable, and then he got paid. He got a contract extension, which was great by the Rams to lock him up early. And man, this is another kind of story that's pretty similar with the Rams. Like they find somebody they drafted in the late rounds or undrafted, and they develop them. They find the role for them, and then most of the time players like that they take a hometown discount because they know how good they have it and they know how much they had to kind of work. And it kind of goes both ways. This guy earned it, but they also got a shot here, and it's not like it's like a massive contract. So I think it really helped out the Rams. So you know what? Hey, we want to make this work. We want to get ahead of it. I know you could probably get more in the open market, but do you want to stay here or not? And it worked out. It's a good contract for him. And I remember I think his rookie year was a year that I covered this team on a daily basis. And the way that Sean McVay, and now that I think about it, he wasn't even available most of his rookie year and or his at least a summer. I'm trying to remember. And I asked Sean McVay, is like, is there a possibility that he won't make the roster? Because there was 2 guys. Remember, it was a yeast. There was
Yep.
two rookie safeties who were drafted on day 3, and I'm like it's gonna be hard to keep both of these guys. And usually the day 3 picks don't have a guarantee, especially the ones in the 6th round or 7th round. I'm losing track of what round Lake was. He might have been 6 or maybe 7th. I lost track, but. And I pretty much say, well, is Quentin Lake a possibility to not make the roster? He pretty much looked at me like I was stupid. It was like, no, like he is not on the chopping block. Like he is somebody we have a lot of high hopes here. He is somebody we have a great respect for his talent. Obviously, his background. He knows football. His dad played in the NFL, and just to see the way they were able to develop him and find the role for him. Because I thought it was too much. I still remember. I think it was a playoff game against the Lions where he gave up the final play. I think, and they lost on that play. He got burnt a couple times against Detroit. I want to say, and we actually got to talk to him at the Super Bowl Radio Row,
Yep,
and
I was gonna bring that up.
we asked him the question about kind of having a rough playoff game against Detroit, and he didn't shy away from it. He knew it was a bad game. It was on his mind, and he wanted to get better. That to me, I'm like, man, this guy doesn't shy away from mistakes. He wants to improve, and then he got better and better and better. And they kept like I thought they gave him too much too soon, but obviously they believed in him, and then it just came together. Like he's playing that star role, which belonged to Jalen Ramsey. Nobody wanted that star role last year, and that kind of was a problem for this team. And he just he probably worked that in the offseason saying, okay, this is an opportunity for me to earn a role, make some money, and really earn the spot here. And obviously he became a team captain. I don't know if it's a second year or first year, but regardless, like he's done so much right from everything I laid out to working to get in that role, to being a team captain, to get in the contract now. So you mentioned it. He even helps out in the run defense. He helps out in coverage. He helps out as a corner. Like there's just so much he does, and you don't really think about it until somebody's out. Like, oh, who's gonna do that, and who's gonna do that too. And when I was checking the free agency rankings, or I was doing free agency rankings for SI, I'm like, I don't know where to put Quentin Lake. Like, am I being LA biased by trying to put him in my top 50? There's so many names, and I'm like, and then I started looking around. I'm like, oh, actually, like it's actually not bad. Like I'm actually ranking this guy too low because I was gonna put him in the 40s, and he was like in the 30s. I'm like, all right, okay, people respect Quentin Lake here.
Hmm.
And then to me, after the season went on, I'm like, this guy's gonna be a top 25 free agent. He's not even gonna make it that far because they paid him already. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I just wanted to show some love that his background story and the way he's really earned it, and not getting a contract, man. He definitely deserves all the money that came his way.
Yeah, and you weren't here when we announced the fact that he got his extension. So, and I was gonna ask you about it. So I'm glad you got that in. And then the other thing too, I forgot about too. As I was listening to you there, he was the green dot last year. They didn't have
Yeah,
a linebacker who they trusted. So Quinn Lake was the green dot last year, and then they brought in Nathan Landman this year, and he's been the green dot all season long. So yeah, he's been a great leader. And I even told Fernando, I'm like, one of the things he might not rate great all the time as a PFF. I don't care about that. It's about communication and how much he does back there. Like having someone like that is a big help. And I'm sure that secondary is going to be happy to have him back, especially those two corners, because they'll be more in lockstep going forward. So we'll see. And I just want to tell everybody here who's watching and listening, give us any question. We're going to get to your questions today. We have a little bit of time, not a lot, but we have Gilbert for a little bit here. And so if you have any questions, just like AMS, we'll get to it during our storyline segment. I'll go quickly here now, Gilbert. The Rams officially have the 13th pick in the NFL draft, courtesy of the Falcons. So uh, Raheem Morris couldn't help him that much as he's helped him already with a couple of draft picks there. But they get the 13th pick after the Falcons won four straight
yeah.
there. So 13 picks, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's like what would it be? I guess they're like 16, or how many teams are in the playoffs right now? 14 minus what? I'm trying to do math. Yeah, I would have
Yeah, so
28.
he
So
was. They were like they finished with
18.
8 wins. I know the Vikings and the Lions finished with 9. They were the ones with the most wins without making the playoffs.
Yeah, so I guess the lowest you could have got was 18, if my math is correct here. And yeah, they won those 4 games in a row. So 13 is not that bad, I guess, when you're thinking about it. But also, the Rams could have helped themselves out by beating the Falcons. That could have been
Yep.
maybe a top 10, top 11 pick. I don't know. I lost track of the order there. But at that point you knew they're gonna try to give it their all because they had no draft pick to play for. So why tank? Like you got to go ahead and win games. You had a coach on the hot seat, so he's gonna do everything he can to win games. But I was a little shocked that Morris got fired because of the 4-game victory that he got. He beat the Rams in prime time, but it just kind of tells me they made up their mind because I think the Falcons lost 7 out of 8, and at that point, I'm sure Arthur Blank was like, "Yeah, I'm done. I don't care what happens the next month here." And sure enough, that's what happened there. You kind of feel for Raheem Morris because he kept a lot of games close. I remember the Germany game against Indy, lost to the Patriots by 1 score. They lost a lot of games by 1 score, and then the
His
wheels fell
time
off.
management was just terrible,
Yeah,
Gilbert.
which is kind of what happened to him the first time around as a head coach, and you thought he was gonna be much better. But he knows how to build defenses. The second year defense that he built with Ulbrich was pretty good. Uh, Obviously, he used that first round pick on James Pierce Jr., but he got 10.5 sacks. So I think it might be worth it. They might be thanking Morris and Fontenot for going and getting James Pierce because I thought he had the most upside as a pass rusher in the draft. It wasn't the sexiest draft for edge rushers, but obviously it's not a Falcons podcast. But to get a top 13 pick, it's going to be big for the Rams, and I just now wonder what's going to happen to Raheem Morris. What if Shula leaves and then bring Morris back? I don't know.
We'll see where he ends up. I would not be surprised if he ends up back with the Rams or with one of the McVay
Yeah.
coaches, tree guys. That'll be something to keep a lookout for during the off seasons. A couple more things here. The Dolphins requested an interview with Rams assistant general manager John McKay for their general manager role. So they're starting to get some general manager love there as well, Gilbert. Tyler Higbee says that the Pro Bowl should turn the fullback position into a slot for another tight end since tight ends are taking over the traditional fullback roles in many
Ah,
offenses. He said, quote, because in my opinion, Davis Allen is a Pro Bowl fullback, if you want to put it that way. So I
interesting.
thought I'm kind of with him. Like most of the teams don't use a fullback. Why are you giving that position to in the Pro Bowl to a fullback when you hardly even? I mean, there's probably like 3 guys I can name you that are fullbacks that are still out there.
Yeah, and this is why I kind of feel bad saying this, but I don't like when I see fullbacks on all pro teams and Pro Bowls. I guess like Pro Bowls are kind of whatever, but like there's like you mentioned, there's gonna be like 3 fullbacks that do it full time, and we all know that Kyle Juszczyk is the best one. It's like there's not much
Nope.
competition. So like if you're gonna have the fullback spot and as an all pro option, like you better open it up to tight ends too, like Tyler Higbee is saying. So yeah, Pro Bowl, all pro, whatever it is, I think there needs to be more love for tight ends. And yeah, they do a lot, especially like the ones that who have been the dominant ones the past year. They're playing like wide receivers. Like Brock Bowers was last year. This year is Trey McBride. Like you could line them up anywhere, give them a heavy workload. Like like I was surprised somebody topped Bauer's season from last year, and Trey McBride did it. I think he got the record for receptions for a tight end in a season, 126. Puka Nakua actually led the league in receptions, 129. And he missed the game. It makes me wonder.
Yeah.
He probably could have won the triple crown. I don't know about the touchdowns, and I did a story on the stats. That's why I
Well,
know.
the Rams would have had the triple crown because they would
Yeah,
have had. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead. Sorry.
but I was gonna say that Puka could have maybe caught Devontae Adams, but that would have required like 4 touchdowns, which is wild to think because Devontae Adams missed 3 games and he still was first in receiving touchdown, which is 14. Puka had 10. And then yeah, so they had you like you mentioned, and Stafford led the league in passing touchdowns, passing yards, Devontae receiving touchdowns. So I guess they were missing like a rushing touchdown champion, which I think was Jonathan Taylor with 18. But overall, I kind of just like, I know I'm kind of going into a different topic here, Vic, but me is my opportunity to say this here. And I like to always brag about my wins here. I get a lot of things wrong, but I wrote an article in March after the free agency frenzy, the first wave, and they asked me to rank the best moves of free agency, and I had Devontae Adams number one. And people were like, "Really? Like they overpaid for the guy? That guy sucks. Like he's already old. He ruined the Raiders. He was just padding stats with the Jets." And I'm like, look at what his presence helped take the Rams to. Like the Rams were a good offense, but now they were dominant. They were probably the best offense in football. Where we just rattled off all the stats that Stafford had. Puka Nakua. We thought that Devontae was going to disrupt Puka Nakua. He was fine. Devontae became the red zone threat. Look at the rushing attack. Look at Kobe Parker said. Look at all the tight ends. I'm like, I think just having that extra layer of versatility and playmaking ability really opened up this offense here. So yeah, we're talking about stats here, and it's kind of showing that signing a 2-year deal, which that's the thing I really liked. It was a short deal in case he was old, in case he was a problem, in case he was Allen Robinson 2.0, which he wasn't. Unfortunately, he got hurt, which is hopefully he comes back this year. But his presence, man, really opened up the floodgates here for Sean McVay's offense.
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed, we'll get into it when we break down this matchup a lot more, is I went back and I watched that Week 13 game yesterday, Gilbert, and we talked about one of my biggest concerns for that signing was whether or not Devontae Adams would do the dirty work, right? Would he block? But you know what they've done is especially when I was watching the 11 personnel, is that they're using Jordan Whittington to do all the dirty work. He's the one blocking up there, which we'll see if he plays in this game. They're saying they expect him to play. He left the game against the Cardinals. So he's someone to kind of keep an eye on because he does a lot of that dirty work. I don't know who you can bring up here if he misses the game because like when especially when you're running screens and stuff like that, bubble screens, he helps a lot when they're trying to get the ball to Devontae Adams, and mostly when they're trying to get the ball to Puka on those bubble screens, or he's the one as one of the lead blockers, and he had a great block on one of those runs by Kyron, I think, or Blake Corum in that game. That also he really stood out in watching that film was Jordan Whittington with his blocking.
Yeah, it was kind of like this perfect storm for keeping Devontae Adams happy and active. Like he didn't have the Puka Nakua number one feature role. He wasn't asked to do the dirty work, but he kind of had this role where he still got the glory as the red zone threat. And he was getting all these touchdowns early on. Like he had a 14 and what 14 games, what one per game because he missed the final three. Uh, and I again I looked it up. I'm like Devontae Adams has done that 3 times in his career. That's a lot of touchdowns. I think he's number 7th in NFL history for receiving touchdowns. There was one year he had 18. He could have probably maybe topped that. I think that was 2020 with Aaron Rodgers. I lost track.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, it wasn't like a role where he had to do a lot, but he also they were winning. He was getting touchdowns. Like it was working. Like it wasn't gonna like affect them. And then like you keep them, fresh for games, and then also you didn't take away from what they wanted to do, Puka Nakua. And then the biggest thing though, Vic, is like defenses had to account for him. He was still showing that he was a big time playmaker. He was still presenting to be a problem. So it just took away so much focus from the other guys that we saw what happened, man. And then to Stafford's credit too, like he was spreading the ball around. Obviously, Puka Nakua's stats look great. Like having 1,700 yards receiving and all the catches he had, he was still spreading the ball around. And most times when he has a stud, he doesn't do that. And I think that's why Stafford's going to be the MVP.
Yeah, and he's been great. He's been the best signing out there. I'm with you. And then I had some concerns there, but they've been able to work it out. And McVay did a great job of making sure that everybody got fed this season. So even with a lot of the issues, you still had a 1,000-yard rusher. You got Blake Corum back. You got 13 personnel where you were feeding tight ends and stuff like that. So he's
Yeah.
done a great job. And talking about coaching, Gilbert, Chris Shula is expected to be interviewed for head coaching jobs next week. But this is according to Gary Klein. He said he said we have an opponent that's extremely capable on beating us. Obviously, that warrants all my attention. So that's what they're going to get. So he's focused on this matchup. He'll worry about the interviews, but I'm glad he's going to go and do some interviews. It's time for him to kind of go and do the whole spiel there where he learns how to be a good interviewer, and then we'll see if he gets a head coaching job.
Yeah, he did a good job with the Rams. It helps that he got to work with Sean McVay. Obviously, we all know his name, his family name, and but he had to earn it too and work his way up. But I do wonder if there's going to be some kind of hesitance to go after a McVay defensive coach after Morris got fired. Brandon Staley didn't work out. Most of the time they work out offensively, but defensively not so much. And you know, the thing about that is that I think McVay does a good job of letting these guys do their own thing. Obviously, he has his own thing going on offensively, and he's so caught up with that he's like, all right, as long as you're making the defense work, you're letting me focus on offense. This is going to be a good marriage here. And uh, yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe when you leave the Rams, like you don't get the benefit of complementary football with the offense that Sean McVay brings. So you go into a different setting, you know it was very difficult for Staley to get a defense with the Chargers. He had a decent job with New Orleans this year. Morris did a great job defensively in Atlanta. He couldn't get it together offensively. But I do wonder that lingers in people's minds. But definitely he is deserving for interviews. The only problem, there's just so many like up and coming defensive names that he's gonna have to compete with the guys like Jesse Minter, or even like a Jeff Halfley in Green Bay. So when you already got two spots pretty much going to Stefanski and Harbaugh, that leaves you with there's seven openings, right? So five
Yeah,
jobs,
there's
and he has to get one of those. But we'll see which one he ends up with. But there's a lot of names out there. It's gonna be very difficult. But we saw Morris had to wait a couple years for his opportunity. Eventually, if you keep doing well as a coordinator, they're gonna come.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes him a little different is that he's coached both sides of the ball. Towards later on, he was a linebackers coach, and then he moved up to the defensive coordinator. So I think he can be one of those guys that can be a CEO and kind of is just putting together a staff, and I think that's going to be the tough team. Maybe he can get Raheem Morris to be his defensive coordinator, and then he can find what's his name? I think it's Chris Robinson, who is the OC there with the Falcons. Who knows? But it's all about putting a good coaching staff around you, Gilbert.
Yeah.
Um, I have two things here on the Carolina Panthers, which I think are huge. And might kind of tell you a little bit more about this matchup. The first one is Gilbert that the Carolina Panthers are going to have Cam Newton be their boom, keep pounding drum guy for this
Okay.
playoff game. And I was telling you before we hopped on that it's the 10-year anniversary of the last time the Carolina Panthers made the playoffs. They went 15-1 that season, lost in the Super Bowl in San Francisco to the Broncos, and you're talking about how good that defense was. Um, and one of the things that's been kind of weird, and I don't know if you've noticed, but they haven't done anything special this year, like a special event to kind of like say, hey, it's been 10 years, bring back Cam Newton, bring back a lot of these players. You saw Greg Olsen pound the drum earlier this season. He's going to be on the broadcast booth for this game as well, Gilbert. So there's also that. Um, but I just find it really weird. I know that David Tepper, the owner, brought back Cam Newton. He was the one that wanted him back in 2021, I think, or 2022.
Yeah.
Um, and then they seem to have had a falling out. But I just think it's weird. Like usually you have teams that, hey, it's a 10-year anniversary of something. Let's have a special event. They haven't done that this year. I just find it really weird. Maybe that's part of the reason why they hadn't made the playoffs. I don't know, but I think that Cam Newton being back might give this team some juice here, especially at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, I guess 10 years seems about right to do it. They also didn't win the Super Bowl. Maybe that's why they haven't really rushed to do it. It was a blowout. It was a bad look for Cam Newton not to jump on that ball for the fumble, which to his credit, he's actually admitted it many times that he just didn't want to do it. He was afraid to go down there. He didn't want to get hurt. A lot of times, players when they have something like that are just like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing I could do." And they get all pretty pissed off about it. And He's been okay with that. That's kind of one thing I noticed. But yeah, he's the face of the franchise. I know he likes to complain a lot about his opportunities, evaporating so quickly. But that's the way the game goes. And maybe he needed some time away to feel like, okay, I'm content in my life here before I start looking at my accomplishments. And yeah, he was definitely one of the. He was pretty much Josh Allen before Josh Allen. Obviously, Josh Allen became a much better passer, but somebody with that size, like guys that you think about that, we're not like for sure Hall of Famers. We'll see about that one for him. But like they left an an imprint on the culture of the team. You're gonna remember the name for a long time. You're gonna be in the Ring of Honor. So yeah, I think it definitely gives us a boost. It's like whenever the Falcons do something and they bring back Michael Vick, it's like
Yep.
obviously people love him, but they know his name. So yeah, I think there's something to it there, and it's just tough because they're an 8-9 team. They're looking for any type of juice that they can get because it's weird. They did beat the Rams the first time around, but coming off a back-to-back blowout, not blowouts, but the Seahawks game was a blowout. And then
Yep.
like you couldn't do really much against Tampa Bay. I know the flags really screwed them up there. People thought that they got screwed over. But you want to have some kind of good momentum after having a 2-game losing streak.
Yeah. And talking about another thing, um, you talked about earlier in the show when we were talking about trends about how the Panthers were really good rushing the ball earlier in the season, the first half of the season. They were a top 10, they were actually a top 3 running rushing team, Gilbert, at the beginning of the year. And then a guy named Robert Hunt got hurt for them. Well, guess what? He's going to be ready to go
Ah,
in this matchup. He was out with the triceps. He was a full participant the last couple of days, so they're going to get an offensive lineman back. And you mentioned that a lot of people criticize the signing, giving an offensive lineman $100 million, but he's been great for them since he's been playing. One more guy is back for them as well, David Moore, veteran receiver. He's been with the Seahawks, with the Buccaneers. When you look at this wide receiver core for the Panthers, they are super young. You got rookie Ted McMillan, you got Jalen Coker, who's in the second year, and you got someone who you've interviewed in Leggett. Um, Getting someone like David Moore is a huge boost. I don't know how much they'll play him, Gilbert, but that is someone also to kind of keep an eye on in this matchup.
yeah, I really liked what Jalen Coker has given them because he missed most of the season with injury, and he's kind of like their shifty wide receiver who's, downfield stretch. Actually, all three guys are able to give you some vertical elements, but he's not the physical guy like Ted McMillan and Leggett. He doesn't have the big radius, but he's very fast. He knows how to get open, good route runner. Uh, I think that's why it was funny because it kind of backfired. Not funny, but it backfired for the Panthers. The reason why they gave up on Adam Thielen is like they already got Jalen Coker is able to do what Thielen is trying to do. So they traded him to Minnesota, and then he got hurt right after. So it kind of backfired on them. But I like what he's brought to the table for Bryce Young. And then obviously McMillan became a star. And I'll keep it real. I think it was an OPI there at the end of the game. That's what the rules are. You can't shove in the first 5 yards both ways. Um, but he's a monster like that. He knows how to create space. He's a powerful wide receiver. He has. I know people question his actually his work ethic. There was like these reports that came out, which were that time of year. People were always trying to
That
bash
he
him
didn't
up.
watch film and
Yeah,
he
that's
made
things
a
like that.
comment and then it blew up. Yep, I
Yeah,
remember
and then
that.
like obviously they question his hands, but he has great hands. He's been much better than Leggett. But overall, like you're right, it's very inexperienced. But I think I saw enough in this core group to feel like they're dangerous. And obviously, we know that the Rams secondary has been a weakness here. We saw what happened the first time around. McMillan dominated the secondary, but yeah, Quentin Lake's going to come back. We'll see. But if they get Leggett going here, and that's another person to account for. But at least you got two guys who are consistent in Coker uh and McMillan. Obviously, David Moore is kind of like their do a little bit of everything guy. That's gonna help out too.
Yeah, and let's get to Rams and Panthers wild card storylines with that, Gilbert. And so I went back and I watched the game last night, the week 13, and a couple of things that really stood out from that matchup, of course, was the three turnovers by Matthew Stafford, right? You had, and they were on back-to-back drives. He had an interception that was a tip ball by Derek Brown, was intercepted by former Ram Nick Scott. The other thing that I was the how many former Rams are on this defense, Gilbert? It's crazy to me. So you have Nick Scott with the interception. Then you have the pick six by Mike Jackson on the next drive. And then, of course, you had the Derek Brown forced fumble that was recovered. And that was pretty much the end of the game there. Um, the Rams ran the ball really well in that game. Like I said, I think they had 30 carries combined between Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. Went for about 151 yards, two touchdowns, as I mentioned. And then you had on the other side with the two running backs there. You had 40 carries, no touchdowns, but they went for about 130 or 140 yards. I forget, but the thing that really stood out about that matchup, Gilbert, going back and watching it, was the way that I'll start off with offensively. Offensively, they were able to run the ball. They were still, even with the rain, they were able to. Stafford was able to throw the ball. I don't think the rain in this game. They're saying it's 95% chance of rain on Saturday, so they're gonna get rain. We saw how well this offense played in Seattle with the rain. We saw how well it played in Carolina. If it wasn't for the two interceptions, which, like I said, one of them was a tip ball in the red zone. The second one, Mike Jackson made a great play. He read the play on Puka there and intercepted the pick six there and took it the other way. Defensively, Gilbert, is where I wanna start here with you. And the way they gash the defense, Gilbert, is a bit of a concern for me here, and that is they ran screens on this defense. They ran the ball on tosses to the outside, and that was a big issue. Like, and then the other thing too was the Panthers were 3 for 3 on fourth down. Two of them went for touchdowns. One of them was a little screen to Chuba Hubbard on the first touchdown, and then the second one was that winning touchdown to was it Coker or Ted McMillan? I forget, but it was a fourth down play. Pretty much gave the win to the Panthers. So those are some of the issues defensively that they need to clean up here. And then one more thing too, as you mentioned, the Dave Canales, he loves running the ball. He's gonna run the ball on first down, second down, and then because he doesn't trust Bryce Young yet, and so he's gonna give you opportunities in this matchup. I wonder if he goes away from those tendencies here, Gilbert. So I've set everything up for you here. You tell me where you want to go with this.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Vic. And I'm looking at the box score. Like, Bryce Young only had 20 attempts, but he was accurate. He got 15 out of those 20, and he played clean football. He didn't have a turnover like Stafford had multiple. So that's a recipe for a Bryce Young offense. Like, as long as he's efficient, making some timely throws, not making errors, and then the running game kind of do the heavy lifting. That's usually a good recipe for him. And I thought McMillan did more in that game, but he only had one catch, but it was 43 yards for a touchdown, and like you mentioned,
That
it
was
was
the fourth down. Yep.
the game winning score. So, for the most part, you think that the Rams didn't give up too much damage, but it was like they also didn't really attack the air because they just, like you mentioned, they don't trust Bryce Young. So if they're balanced and they're having to run the football, that's going to be a problem there for this Rams defense. So, yeah, we always think about the wide receivers and how much of a problem they are for the second there, but the real thing is stopping the run. If you stop the run and you make them one dimensional, yes, so listen to Brian Smith here, hit the like button. You make them one dimensional, then you force Canales to call more passing plays. You put the ball in Bryce Young's hand, and for the most part, he doesn't really come through. And we saw him struggle against the 49ers on Monday night. I really want to see what they're made of on that night. I think it was week 12, and they crapped the bed, but then they beat the Rams a week later. They had to face Seattle. I know the Seattle game was interesting because it was close in the first half. It wasn't a good offensive performance, but defensively they were okay. And then boom, they got blown out in the second half, and the offense didn't do anything. But you mentioned Robert Hunt wasn't playing in the back half of the season, so uh, having a good O line, maybe the running game comes alive. That's going to be very dangerous for the Rams here. But yeah, I could see why this team won that game the first time around. And even with all that, the Rams still had a chance to take the victory, even though it was an ugly game for them. Even though the script was going Carolina away, if Stafford doesn't throw that interception, trying to hit Puka Nakua, maybe they win that game. And we're not talking about this game in depth like that. So. Yeah, a lot of things have to go their way, and I think that's why nobody's really giving this team a chance because they won the first time around, but here they are again, 10-point dogs at home.
Yeah, and and looking back at it, I was just the way they ran the ball on the Rams, and it wasn't just it wasn't just like runs up the middle. Like, and one of the guys that really stood out was Braden Fisk. He was all over the field in that matchup. The thing was is that they were just getting gashed on the outside, whether it was a toss or it was a screen, and the Rams' biggest Achilles heels on defense. And I know we talked about the secondary. It's not that, Gilbert, is they're terrible against the screen game. We saw what happened against the Seahawks where they allowed Ken Walker to get on the screen there and he scored. In this matchup too in week 13, the same thing happened. So how many times will Canales go for it? And that's the other thing too, Gilbert. One of the comment I love this question by Brian Smith because he says, how many times will Canales go for it on fourth down? Uh, it, I'll take the over. He'll make Dan Campbell look conservative. Another one of my concerns besides Mevis. The one common theme last year, Gilbert, with the top four teams that made it to championship weekend was all four of those teams, Gilbert, were the highest in terms of going for it on fourth down. The Lions, the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the Bills. Those were the top four teams last year in going for it. You have to be aggressive, and I wonder how aggressive Canales is going to be in this game and how aggressive McVay is. That's going to tell us a lot about how this game goes as well.
Yeah, I think for the Panthers, they're going to be aggressive because they know they can't win with field goals. They know that the Rams are very explosive, so you have to score touchdowns, and they got lucky a couple of times. They got that pick six, and that helped them get an easy one there, and at least an easy one for the offense to feel like, okay, cool. We don't have to score that much because the defense is coming to play. But yeah, at the same time, like a lot of these plays, especially on fourth downs, that they kind of like they really beat you up or take the life out of you when you see one go. Like, oh man, they should have got that one on 4th and 5 or 4th and 6. So you know, this is why I always go back to the defensive front. Like you can't allow these plays to materialize on the money downs. On third down, fourth down, you got to get off the field and you got to let your offense do their thing because this offense is that good. This offense deserves more possession so they could, make this a blowout instead of a close game. So, Jerry Verse was pretty quiet in that first game, but maybe it's not too surprising hearing what you said about them having moving the ball in space, screen plays. Like these are all quick throws, quick plays, quick thinking. You can't get after the quarterback that way. So, maybe that's part of the reason why the Rams front has been a little overrated this year or a little disappointing because people saw the game film from last year and they're like, yeah, we're not gonna mess around here. Like we're just gonna get the ball out quickly. We're not gonna get these guys an opportunity. But you want to see more from Braden Fisk. You want to see more from Byron Young and Kobe Turner. And if you're Jared Verse, you can't have a game when you have no sacks, no quarterback hits, no tackles for loss, no forced fumbles. You got to have some kind of impact, and that's what he did in that Carolina game. He had nothing besides 4 tackles.
Yeah, the player that I didn't see much up in this first matchup was Puna Four. I
Yeah,
didn't like he didn't even stand out in that game, and I don't know why he wasn't in the game. I don't know if he was. I just didn't see him. Like I said, it was Braden Fisk, it was Colby Turner, it was Jared Verse. Byron Young had some good tackles there, but they need more out of that. I want to get to some of these questions here, Gilbert, before we go. We give our game predictions. AMS is the big question is, can our kicker hit the pressure kick? and that's going to
Yeah.
be something I want to see him in this game be able to hit some field goals. There was an opportunity there, Gilbert, towards the end of the game, but Matthew Stafford had that fumble that I wanted to see Mevis, get the chance there to kick the field goal. Unfortunately, Matthew Stafford fumbled the ball, so we didn't get a chance to. He got an opportunity against the Seahawks. He missed, then and ended up costing Chase Blackburn his job as a special teams coordinator. So yeah, it is a big question, right?
Yeah, like I wonder, is that gonna come back to haunt them? Like you don't have your special teams coordinator. I'm sure they're all playing catch up, and I guess the Cardinal game, they were fine. The Falcons game was more about the defense couldn't stop Bijan, but this could be one of those games like sometimes the special teams issues, you forget about it for a couple of weeks, and then it's like, ah, crap, they are terrible. We forgot about
Yeah.
that, and it could happen for Mavis here. It could happen for remember we saw in that Seahawks game where they allowed that punt return touchdown to Rashid Shaheed. Like, I want to see if whatever McVay did after firing Blackburn, are they much improved? And if the game is tight, guess what happens? Special teams is much more important. It gets more under the microscope. And if you're winning in ugly fashion, you're dominating, and the game's ugly, nobody really cares about special teams. But that's the reason why I think Sean McVay pulled the plug on Cardi while he fired up Blackburn, because he knows that games get tight in the postseason. And when the games are tight, you better have a good special teams.
Yeah, and then in terms of the kicking game, Gilbert, I just think he's gonna take that off. He's gonna just go for it. He's gonna be aggressive. He just knows uh how important these drives are, how important it is for him to be efficient, for his offense to stay on the field against that defense. And so I just think, like, outside of it being like 4th and 12 or something, at the 20-yard line, he's gonna kick the field goal. But if he's like within 5 yards and they're in that in between zone, he's gonna go for it. And so I just don't see him, trying to kick, you know, anywhere between 40 and above field goals. I don't think he's gonna put Mevis in that situation.
Yeah, and again, I'm not. I know I've been crapping on the Panthers, but say it is a blowout. It would be nice if Mavis
Yeah,
gets a few field goals. Like if he has a game where it's all extra points and yet to go into the next game not knowing what the hell this guy's gonna do in the playoffs, that's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of
yeah,
like, is he gonna screw it up at the worst time here? Even like a guy who was doing, I know he's a rookie, but he was doing well, Tyler Loop, and then the second that he had to make make that field goal. Sorry, against the Steelers for the Ravens. He went wide right, and then his coach got fired. It's a lot of pressure on
yeah.
these kickers, man. He had to make that
Man,
field goal.
my Tariq just set him up cold, man. With that, he's like, they scour the country, and he was the best guy out there.
Yeah, and he was a good kicker for the whole year, and then yeah, he's still a rookie, and he went wide right.
Yeah,
So I think for Mavis it would be good, because I'm gonna say that this would be his first playoff game, right? I could be wrong here,
yeah.
but so get a field goal for him. Don't have him just have extra points, but it could happen because if it's a blowout, they don't need him to kick, but you want to have him get a couple in there.
Yeah, and then ESG says also Carolina ran the ball 40 times, which we've brought up multiple times. They didn't do that before the Rams, and they haven't done it after. And one of the things that Dave Canales is known for, and I thought I forgot to mention, just because we're running, pretty late here. Like the I guess the thing that connects these two teams is Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield was the quarterback with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that got Dave Canales the job with Carolina. Baker Mayfield was also with Carolina. They released him. He ended up going to the Rams, kind of going on rehab, and then he was talking about how they should have never let him go or whatever. But yeah, it's crazy how Baker Mayfield kind of connects to these two teams here as well.
Yeah, Baker wanted to have a revenge on Carolina, but they are in the playoffs because the Falcons couldn't handle the Saints couldn't handle the Falcons. But yeah, it's kind of funny how things move around in the NFL. I think when Baker was with the Rams, Canales was with the Seahawks, and then obviously Canales goes with the
Yep.
Buccaneers, where Baker ends up going. So it's all kind of a full circle thing here. But uh, I'm sure Canales knows the Rams scheme very well because of his DC, Ejiro Evero,
Yep.
formerly coach of the Rams. So he's a very good DC. So that's another factor. Like there's some Rams DNA on that Carolina team, so it could maybe be a benefit. Maybe that's why I think we brought it up before the Carolina game, where you probably did because I was overlooking this team. Where
Yeah.
like they know them well because they have coaches for that coach under McVay, so maybe that's another thing to worry about.
Yeah, and they have a lot of former players, for a lot of former Ram players too. And
That too, yeah.
the two of the losses this season were to former guys that were on that staff, Raheem Morris and Ebro. So that is another thing to
Yeah.
kind of keep in mind. And let's get to keys here real quick, Gilbert, and I'll give you mine just because we just went into that. The Panthers secondary is legit. Like they have one of the best two tandems that nobody talks about, JC Horn and Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson had 4 interceptions. JC Horn had 5. They had back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back drives against the 49ers against Brock Purdy. So they are a legit secondary, Gilbert, and that should be something that's worrisome, especially in a rainy day here as you're trying to get the ball down the field to Puka and Devontae Adams. My biggest key here is I want to see Puka and Devontae Adams get separation. They didn't have a lot of separation. A lot of those balls were contested because these two cornerbacks are really sticky on defense. So that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on too, Gilbert.
Yeah, neither Nakua or Adams went over 72 receiving yards, so they did a good job on those two guys, and they're also ball hogs. And I think the best interception I saw this year was from J.C. Horn. So, and then you mentioned I think Michael Jackson is that, yeah, Mike Jackson had his a pick six there. So, ball hogs who are feisty they don't give up on any play. They don't care who's in front of them. So, yeah, they are much better defensively than a year ago. They were pretty bad. Obviously, I having Derek Brown. I think J.C. Horn got hurt too a lot. So, you have a good coordinator. You're well coached, and you have some power at some critical positions. I think they're still very thin in many areas. I don't know how they don't
Linebacker.
have, yeah, linebacker. They don't have enough edge rushers to help out the guy in the middle, Derek Brown. But it's still not like I could be wrong here. Maybe it is a top 15, but it's still either a middle of the pack defense. But this is the one that you could definitely score points on. And honestly, if Stafford just protects the football, it could be a different story. So I think they could get yards. We saw the running game do well. Obviously, go through the running game and then kind of pick apart this secondary if you can. But it's a good one, like you mentioned, Rick.
Yeah, and Daniel says that's why I'm worried about our wide receivers not getting separation. And then to Brian Smith's comment here, Canales is a former Seahawks. He is a Pete Carroll guy through and through. Like is gonna run the ball, and he's gonna use the running game to set up the pass. And so he is a big uh Pete Carroll guy, where he took a lot of his principles from Pete Carroll, and he hasn't gone away from it. Like I said,
Yeah.
uh, they have been the worst efficient team in terms of running the ball, but they still ESG brought it up. They still ran the ball 40 times, and they haven't been able to run it since then. But he's going to commit to the run. He's not going to go away from it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that really maybe was a factor for the Panthers beating the Rams the first time around. Canales was in the NFC West for many years under Pete Carroll, and he had to work his way up, and he earned his trust. And uh, yeah, they know a lot about this team. They know what their weaknesses are. They know how to play them, and to see, I think at the time Stafford had that streak of no interceptions. To see him get that frustrated and to make some mistakes like that, it tells you they know where the ball was going. They know they were ahead of it. They made some smart guesses. So yeah, I think coaches being familiar with this team is going to be a big factor. But yeah, it's all about adjustments here. Can you do it 2 times in a row against this Rams team? It's going to be very difficult because again, they were pretty much one. If they had a one less mistake on that Stafford interception, they probably would have won that game.
Yeah, and I mean, it just tells you why coaching matters, and I want to see what the adjustments are from both teams actually. All right, Gilbert, the Rams are 10.5 point favorites as you mentioned. The over under here is 46.5. What is the right side of this line, Gilbert?
Yeah, we couldn't make it through one show, Brian, but I was hoping we wouldn't get 1-2-2 mention, but there it is from you, Brian.
Oh,
It's
by the
2-2.
way, I'm glad he brought it up, and we'll get to it. I'm sorry, but rewatching that game, Xavier Smith should be the guy, the deep threat on this team, not Tutu. Like Xavier Smith had two great catches in that game in Week 13. He and I think he had the longest of his career. I think it was a 40 or a 50-yard catch in that game. So I want to see more Xavier Smith than I do Tutu. And Ronnie Rivers was a machine on in the return game in that game. He set up that first touchdown. I think he had like a 40 or 50-yard kickoff return on the opening drive or
And
kickoff.
also this could be a good thing here because anytime I crap on Tutu Atwell, he has he
Yep.
won't have two catches, but he'll have one catch for like 50 yards, and it'll be an impactful 50-yard catch. So maybe me talking crap will be a benefit. So hopefully I helped out the Rams
Yeah.
fans
Brian
here.
set you up there.
Yeah, so he's gonna have two catches for 80 yards, and he's gonna average 40 yards per catch, and that's what he does. And uh, yeah, I was trying to see the last time he had a catch. He had a catch in that Cardinals game, one catch, 19 yards. That sounds about right for Tutu Atwell. Averages
Yeah.
more than 15 yards, but it has to be one catch.
I I
Anyways,
I I need to go back, Gilbert, and look at his stats for the season and kind of do how much he earned that $10 million like per catch. We gotta do the math on that.
I honestly wouldn't. I'll be shocked if he has more than 12 catches this season, but I could be wrong.
Well, he did
Uh,
miss some time, so there's
Yeah,
that.
that too. But okay, so the Rams are 10.5 point favorites here. This is the biggest spread by far of wild card weekend. Please don't call it super. It's just a regular wild card weekend for me. And it's kind of a high over here, knowing, sorry, for total, knowing that the Panthers are involved, but that just shows you the respect of the Rams offense. But uh, yeah, I'm not gonna backtrack here. I know I got burned the first time around. I said the Rams were gonna dominate here, and I laid the points. I don't care. I'm gonna do it again. I will lay the points here. I think it's gonna be a blowout, and I'll go over.
I'm with you on both of those, Gilbert. And we're gonna get to Brian. You set me up again. And we're gonna talk about it here. The Rams were 12-5 this season against the spread. Uh, give us your prediction here. Here, let me go first, Gilbert. Let me set you up
Yeah.
here. Um, Brian said, did we run much of 13 personnel against Carolina in the first game, or was it all Puka? I saw a lot of 11 personnel in that game. Like I said, they were when they were running the ball really well, it was 11 personnel, Gilbert. It was Jordan Whittington. It was Devontae Adams and Puka Nakua in the game. And and to Tyler Higbee's point, Davis Allen was the leading blocker from a lot of those runs. So he's been a really good blocker whenever he's been in the game. So keep an eye on 87 especially when they run the ball, and Jordan Whittington. Hopefully he's healthy enough to be in this game, Gilbert. And in terms of the game prediction, Gilbert, I'm gonna go with the Rams, and you said it. I still think it's a blowout. My biggest thing is Cam Newton's going to get the crowd going at the beginning. They're going to have a lot of juice, so you just got to withstand whatever the Panthers are going to throw at you early on. But I think once you're able to withstand that first quarter, just because of all the juice that they're going to get from Cam Newton being there, um, I think this game's going to end up being a blowout. We saw when the Rams have been in a rematch mode or revenge mode, they've been able to blow out teams, right? We saw what happened against the 49ers. They went to San Francisco and they blew out the 49ers. They took care of business. I think they pretty much score on every drive against the 49ers. I would not be surprised if they do that in this matchup as well, Gilbert. I just like I
Mm.
said, I think we might see a little bit more of 13 personnel in this matchup to Brian's now that Tyler Higbee makes such a big difference to this to this offense. And I just don't want to see a lot of Devontae Adams. I want him to kind of take it easy. I'm glad he's going to be out there, but I think the biggest key to me in this game is the fact that Tyler Higbee is going to be in this game.
Yeah, you want it to be a blowout because you don't want to, force it on Devonte Adams' hamstring. Those are tricky. Those actually, I think honestly, it take like more than 2 months to fully heal. And if you make
Yeah.
one bad move, like you're gonna be out the whole year. And he's been out what, a month, so it's gonna be a tricky timeline. But yeah, like you mentioned, they have their other weapons, and I want to see more Higby. Obviously, I want to see Parkinson. So yeah, we'll see. And obviously we are an Xavier Smith show here, not a Tutu Atwell show. The leading receiver in that game against the Panthers was
Yep.
Xavier Smith, 3 catches, 82 yards. So maybe he does something there. But yeah, you guys already know my pick here. I'm going with the Rams, and I'll say 31-17. Did I go? Yeah, I got the over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a blowout. Yeah, maybe there's a little like feel out phase in the beginning, but this team is just much better. I think the mistakes are gonna be limited. You won't have the double interceptions from Stafford. You won't see a pick six. And I do again. I've been calling out this guy. I got to see Jared Verse dominate. So I know he does well in the PFF stats and the pressures and all that, but sometimes football is not that complicated. Make it easy and go and dominate. Let me see some noticeable impact plays out there. And yeah, and Xavier Smith's gonna have a long one for a touchdown.
Yeah, I think you're kind of being a little nice here. I think the Vegas gonna try to run up the score. I think
Oh,
it's gonna be they're gonna try to put 40 on the Panthers here, and so I think it's gonna be like something like 40-17. Some like
damn.
I can see McVay just because of the way he is. I can see him running up the score in this game if he has the opportunity. We'll see if he does. I know
All right.
it's gonna be raining and stuff, but I just think that the Rams are they've been waiting for this. This is when the time they shine is in December and January. December was a little bumpy this year, but January we've seen what Matthew Stafford can do in January.
Yeah, he's gonna probably get the MVP at the end of the year, or then after what, the playoffs, and there'll be NFL honors. But yeah, I honestly think for the Rams' sake, it's good that they're gonna get a revenge game to kind of get that bad, final month of the season, out of their minds and say, okay, we're still this dominant team here. They went 3-3 in the final 6 games. If you're the number one team in football, you don't split like that. So I think for them, if they are able to flex their muscles, it's gonna be good. And you mentioned they do well in revenge games.
Yep. All right, Gilbert, that is all. I know we went a little long. I had a lot of information for you, and we had a little bit of extra time this time around. So, but that's all I have for you today. We'll be back after the game on Saturday. Hopefully it's a Rams win, and we can talk. We can have a good conversation afterwards and get ready to see who they face after that. But with that, Gilbert, it's time for us to go. So you go ahead, sir, and take us out of here.
Yeah, let's get out of here. We're almost here for playoff football. It's not a Sunday, it's a Saturday, so it'll be fast. It'll be here fast. And yeah, Brian has the Rams 37-34. I think I saw a couple other scores at the beginning
I
here
got
that
you.
yeah, there you go. 38-20 for Mike Armenta. There was Master Lex as Rams goes over 40 points, and then Panthers 25. So, yeah, a lot of people are expecting high scoring games here. And I'm sure everybody's expecting a Rams victory. They're going to be the most betted on team. They're going to be the most picked team by all the experts. So, uh, yeah, I can't wait for Saturday afternoon for the Rams and the Panthers to bring it on. Delbert's going 27-18. That's a good score right there. So, yeah, revenge season. Go ahead and dominate. Maybe they get the Eagles in the division round for more revenge. Maybe that is the tour for this postseason. But
Yeah, like
uh,
most of the teams that they've lost to, they're in this tournament, so they're gonna get a chance to be able to
yeah,
avenge a lot of those losses that they had during the regular season.
Yeah, but I won't get too ahead of myself here. Focus on Carolina. And then we're going to be here on House of Horns to review it. So hopefully you guys could join us for the post game show. But it's time to get going. Ya nos vamos, pues.